Hello everybody, welcome to the Wonky Angle, where I talk about electronic music, both new and old. And today I'm talking about the new album from Rone, Mirapolis. Mirapolis. Rone is the alias for Erwan Castex. Sorry for butchered pronunciation as per usual. An artist I've been hearing about for some time now. Well, if you asked me 2 years ago if I knew who this guy was, I'd be probably like, yeah, okay, whatever, I'll check him out later, I guess. But currently though, the thing I know him for would be this. Yes, as some may recall, this guy collaborated with none other than Jean-Michel Jarre on his Electronica 2 The Heart of Noise project. But that in itself might not have been an immediate reason for me to check the guy out. Electronica 2 wasn't precisely a masterpiece. But a bit more of a reason to check the guy out appeared in the form of an AMA on Reddit for Orbital, who when asked about cool new names in electronic music they were grooving to, they named Rone. Yep. And then I saw the guy just happened to come out with a new album, and I got a couple of requests to cover it too. So I decided, good times, I need to check out the guy's stuff. So here's my thoughts on his discography so far. Okay, definitely some interesting stuff here. I see a lot of comparisons drawn to Jarre himself, and honestly I can see some resemblance, but I think he does his own thing. I mean, I wasn't exactly expecting anything, you know, epic and cinematic and Jean-Michel Jarre-esque out of an album called Spanish Breakfast. But it does still carry that sort of cinematic vibe, and it does have a lot of minimal techno influence as well, so definitely a promising debut here. This one seems to be taking a louder approach than the debut, and yet for some reason, among the first names that come to mind when listening to this are like BOC and Air. You know, not precisely names known for louder music. I mean, it's not precisely unlike anything I've ever heard before. I mean, the Jarre influence does come in a bit more later on. And again, it's more of a compositional influence and not so much sonic. It doesn't utilize the same kind of synth tones he'd use, but, yeah. Oh yeah, and also there's a full orchestra on one track here, which I'm always gonna enjoy. Okay, by this point, we've obviously made it to the Rone who is half responsible for The Heart of Noise. Making everything sound huge and expansive, utilizing a sound palette that is at once familiar but its own thing. I'll admit he seems to kind of have a formula and sound that he's stuck to over these 3 albums, but it's one that I've enjoyed regardless. Which brings us to here. After hearing these albums, I'll admit going into this new 4th one, I think I had a pretty good idea of what to expect. This guy's sound has steadily evolved from album to album, not quite exactly the same, but I had no reason to doubt that this 4th album wouldn't provide me with something cool to enjoy. Maybe not anything mind-blowing per se, but it was something I would be able to co-sign. Definitely caught my eye with the very cool album artwork there. I just wanted to like that album purely because of that cover. So I just, jumped in with, like, no expectations. Now I had expectations, what the fuck am I talking about? So I just, jumped in, and what did we get with Mirapolis? Alright, I have a lot of mixed thoughts on this thing. I've had a hard time parsing my thoughts on it. If I'm going to be completely honest, I think Mirapolis is Rone's weakest album to date. Now I want to make it clear that doesn't mean I think it's bad. Like, purely from a production standpoint, Mirapolis is on some next level shit here. This is the best sounding album Rone has done so far. Just from the instrumental palette to the mixing, that just really makes everything as just 100% as expansive as that album cover makes it look. Just the production is absolutely stellar. The problem with this album is that the actual compositions, I believe, are also his least interesting. And just not nearly as unique sounding or particularly cool or engaging ideas. It sounds like a lot of stuff I've heard before, and more often than not I came out of the album feeling unfulfilled. Like, there's potential for something here that I didn't really get. In fact, if I gotta be brutally honest, one of the first albums that came to mind as a comparison point to this one was that latest Odessa project, which on more than a few listens I also kinda came out with that exact same feeling of at the end. Odessa though I think have kinda the opposite problem from Rone here. A Moment Apart had a lot of really cool and creative ideas, but what killed it in the end was the production and sound. And that made everything feel really flat and ready-made to be shipped out to advertising agencies. And it was overstuffed as well. Mirapolis also kind of has some filler in there, but, you know, sometimes I can listen to this thing and just be blown away purely by all the detail in the production and how fantastic everything sounds. But it is the kind of music that best benefits from having a good pair of headphones and turning it up and immersing yourself in it. Though not necessarily the kind of thing that calls up for, you know, sitting up to pay attention. Because, as I said, I just don't think the compositions are very interesting or compelling for the most part. They just sound like stuff I've heard before. I mean, just trying to be really huge and epic and, you know, not really providing a distinctive flavor to set itself apart from the crowd. Aside from, I guess, sounding kind of like Jarre, a little bit of rock influence in there, I guess, I don't know. Now, there are a few moments on this album where I'm like, yeah, this is some really great stuff. Like, I love the album's intro, I, Philip. That's probably my favorite track on the album, and it really sets the tone for the kind of sound you're going to get throughout this album. Like, it starts out very ambient and angelic almost, then switching over to these guitar, piano-like sounds, and then ending with this cool synth progression at the end. It's a track that really feels like it's going somewhere and had me set up to think that, oh boy, this is gonna be some really great stuff I'm getting into. But the rest, unfortunately, doesn't hit quite that same height. But there are other interesting moments. Switches. Yeah, it has a lot of cool horn sections. I really like that one. And the whole, I love you, baby, thing was pretty catchy too. Origami has some more interesting and energetic rhythmic patterns that really got my attention. Wave has a more laid-back and minimalistic piano-driven bend to it that is absolutely necessary to prevent this album from feeling overbearing, though with some pretty cool percussion tracks as well. And the title track on this thing has like a Baroque music bend to it that makes it sound really haunting, and that was a really good one. Probably should have been this album's ending if you ask me, though unfortunately is followed by Down for the Cause, a vocal track which, while catchy, doesn't stand out much by itself. And I gotta talk about these vocal tracks, which are kinda hit and miss for me. Like, I already mentioned Wave, definitely my favorite vocal tracks. I can see you wave. And Switches, which features the voice of Baxter Dury. Honestly, I don't really care for his voice, but the rest of the, you know, the cool instrumentation on the track and its catchiness makes up for it. But less so with the appearance of Saul Williams on the tracks Faster and Everything. Because not only is he a bad singer, like, faster than a speeder, I just really do not like this guy singing, ugh. But the tracks he appears on make him the center focus, and just don't really provide anything to distract me in the same way Switches did. Faster in particular was disappointing because it's not a fast track at all. It's very slow and, like, Imagine Dragons-ish. And I was half hoping for the track to just start moving in double time to fit with the topic of the song. That would have really made it great, but missed opportunity. And then the track Everything, that one benefits from being more low-key and having some more interesting lyrics, I guess, where Saul Williams just kind of rambles bitterly at some past love, I think. Now, I think this track benefits from Saul Williams' voice sounding kind of bad because, I mean, he sounds just drunk and bitter and miserable, and it's a good fit for what he's talking about, but it just doesn't hold up well to repeat listens because, again, I mean, like, he sounds like a really off-key, poor man's Elvis Costello. You destroy everything. God, he really got grating and annoying with repeat listens. As for the other instrumentals on here, like I said, they're all really pretty, they're cinematic, they're epic, and deliver on that sort of Jean-Michel Jarre rendezvous or chronology sort of appeal, but they don't really offer much for me to discuss outside of that. Lou has some great acoustic drum textures and one of the more memorable melodies on here. Breast has some nice orchestral elements that maybe blend in too seamlessly with the orchestral quality of the synth textures on the other tracks, but still pretty cool. And Spank and Zapoi to just sound like the other tracks on this album without me really being able to say anything else. The latter in particular just shouldn't have even been here in the first place if you ask me. It's just a minute and a half build-up that leads to nothing and cuts off abruptly. It is just pointless filler. It doesn't even sound any different from the other tracks on here, just don't need that one. And it's stuff like this that makes it kind of difficult to give Mirapolis the full thumbs up. Its biggest crime is just being too samey. Everything does come together for that sort of epic cinematic vibe, and like I said, Rone most definitely has the production chops and instrumental textures to really back it up. But there have just been too many listens of this thing that basically went in one ear and out the other without really engaging me in any way. It's just that I feel like Rone was able to deliver on more interesting song ideas on his previous albums, which led to more engaging and fun listens. Here he put all his effort into production, and not enough effort into actually getting the tracks to sound more distinctive or unique. I really don't know how much I'm gonna be returning to this thing. It was kind of a frustrating album. But I will say this, there is definitely an emotional core to this album that comes across well, and as I've said many times already, I will have to recommend this album on the promise of the production alone. There is definitely more to like about this album than to dislike about it, and I think Rone might even have the potential for some mind-blowing new classic in him, really. I mean, he has had cool, unique ideas in the past. Spanish Breakfast was its own thing, for instance. So if he can figure out a way to balance out the cool, compelling track ideas of his other albums with the stellar sound design of this one, we could get something really special. But as for Mirapolis itself, it's not the best work this guy can do, but yeah, I'll say it's worth giving a shot. So, I guess I'm overall feeling a 7.3 out of 10. But of course, this is just my opinion. You can feel free to disagree with it, but I'd like to hear your thoughts, so leave the comments in the comment thing down there. But yeah, that's pretty much it. That's all for today. See you next time.